Welcome back to Raised by Giants discussion. We are live. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any moderators out there and channel members. We have an amazing show for everyone this evening with first time guest Lorenzo from the New Now channel. But before I bring him on, a shout out to Candace for her contributions on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you very much, Candace, a longtime supporter of the show. Super chats and super stickers are available and will be read out live during the show. PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description and are a great way to help support the show and my work. And also, a Ryder Rangers channel memberships are available and are a fantastic way to help to support the show monthly. And if you become a Ryder Rangers channel member, you'll get access to bonus episodes weekly. A new episode will be dropping tomorrow with Ryan Burns titled Steadfast Defender 2024. You're not going to want to miss that one. So become a Ryder Rangers member today and help support the show monthly. And check the community tab page on the channel to get access to those episodes. So with that down, we have Lorenzo from the New Now channel on YouTube. And I was just on his show a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, and we had amazing and great conversations. So I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to bring him on the channel today. How's it going, Lorenzo? It's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, doing good. Thanks so much for inviting me on. An interesting topic, what owns you? And I'm, delighted to be here to talk with your viewers live for the first time.
Yeah, the reason that I wanted to do this topic, because it's something that I kind of touched on before in the past. And, if you didn't personally create something, do you really own it? I mean, I guess that's the whole question here, because almost everything that we own has been purchased. Someone else made it, and we've purchased that from them. Our food, our houses, our cars, our electronics, and including land has all been purchased. We didn't make any of that stuff, right? It's made with someone else's energy, time, effort, and skill, and it has their name on it. Their insignia is on it. Their sigil is on it. Their logo is on it. Which would that not mean that it's their property, regardless if you purchased it or not?
Well, it's interesting, obviously a brand, people know what a brand is, we'll take it that. And a brand is, they brand cows to show ownership, a brand mark. I know myself when I go to buy things, I stay away from the ones that have the huge logos. Like I bought jackets from a particular brand here in Japan that had a little logo and I didn't mind. And then I went out recently to look at some of their sweat tops and, other winter coats. And then their brand is suddenly, covering the entire chest of the particular coat I wanted to buy. And, I find it a bit ridiculous that you're actually paying to advertise someone else's brand, someone else's idea, and someone else's way to see how you should and shouldn't be. And, the funny thing about that is it seems, brands have more value. I've discussed that with my wife here in Japan. It's like, how come, this particular clothing article has more value than this particular clothing article, even though, let's say, the quality is the same or even less. And for some reason, for some people, they want the brand, they want the recognition, they want to, other people to know that they are spending higher levels of cash, I guess, for self-important reasons and things like that. So indirectly, do you really own anything? It's an interesting question in that, we all die, can't take it with you. So do you really own anything? I would say, like they used to say when, you don't buy beer, you borrow it for obvious reasons. I would say, the direct answer to that is you borrow something for 60 years, 160 years, and eventually it all goes back.
I must have messed up in the beginning. I'm not a good host today. First, let people know where to find you online and what your channel is about. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that in the
No
beginning.
worries. No worries. Everyone.
It's difficult. I normally don't bring on new people onto my channel. It's normally people that I've talked to several times before. So we just jump right into it. But really quickly, let people know what your channel is about and how you got into starting your channel and what kind of road that has led you down.
All good. Everyone check out newagora.ca. We did print monthly, full color in BC, West Coast, Canada, up into California for 12 years. We stopped during the viral shenanigans when print became untenable. We've been online for about 15 years, newagora.ca, and about 3 years ago, I decided to go online and do what Ryder's been doing and share the new now. The new Agora in Portuguese, Ahora means now. So the new Agora, if people aren't aware what Agora means, it's a meeting place, a marketplace, a way for people to get together and share ideas, products, services, information, that sort of thing. And, we all know the old is pretty staid and full of propaganda that's not, let's say, directed to your happy, healthy life. And so we wanted to do something new, thus the new Agora, which kind of brings us full circle. So the new now is my YouTube channel, newagora.ca. Even though it's worldwide, I'm from Canada originally, so that's why the .ca. And to take it full circle as to what we're talking about today, who owns you, it's interesting in that, you look up a definition of ownership and you get control, the right to control something. So, even though we've been talking about, let's say, clothing articles, I think an interesting segue in this particular topic is who owns you as a being, as a person, as someone that's on this planet, this plane, this life, and who controls you, who owns you, which is, something, Ryder, you and I have touched upon a little bit in our couple of conversations we've done.
Yeah, and if it, thank you for that. The link is in the description for Lorenzo's YouTube channel. I've been on there a couple of times. Highly recommend it. I've also shared the videos that we've done together in the community page of this channel. Now, if something belongs, if a person created something, and we've just created this type of illusion of a monetary system that makes it to where we think that we have the right to own something that we didn't create, right? And that gets into, well, are we entitled to anything in this realm, right? Does the earth owe us anything?
No, you get the biggest gift, being born. People don't consider and contemplate that enough. I mean, I see a comment by Candice Polgassi, being registered, at birth. And it's very interesting. Like, I have a birth certificate. I still have my Canadian one that was given to me 3 years after I was born. You don't get those anymore. For some reason, I've had it in my wallet for, many decades. And I looked at the back one day and it said National Bank Corporation of Canada, which is one of the things you asked, how I got started on this particular path. So I remember someone saying, you're not owned, you're a product, you're a human resource, you're traded on there's some conspiratorial information that's been floating around out there for decades on the fact that government sells you and borrows against the credit of your life and your life force and things like that. And I didn't believe it until I picked up my birth certificate and it said, National Bank Corporation of Canada, and it literally, I dropped, it felt like my energy dropped out the bottom of my feet in that moment. And I said, oh, what the F is that doing on my birth certificate? Bank Corporation of Canada. And I did a whole bunch of research going back from there. And I haven't found any answers one way or the other, but the proof is in the pudding. It's like, why would that be there if someone wasn't trading you and trying to own you, which goes back to what ownership means, to control something. So even if you're not owed a life, somebody out there or something out there, we get into the what afterwards, like what, what owns you? Like, we have a definite, usually you say who owns you. So it's interesting to say what, because the who is usually a person and a what could be anything, a thing or something that's not human. Like, what is that? What are we doing? So it seems like it's a non-human intelligence when you say what. So I found that to be an interesting choice of topics that you chose to bring me on here with. Instead of who owns you, I reread it a few times. I said, what? That's very interesting. So, what is setting up our birth certificate? What is deciding we're chattel? What is bringing us through that birth canal? We can go talk about the words if you like, a lady's birth canal being brought into the system, being birthed like a ship, etc., all of that stuff. And brings us back to the topic as what is the what that owns you and is trying to control you?
Well, I mean, you can be owned by other things than another human being, right? You can be owned by other things other than a corporation. Like the things that you own normally turn out more like they own you. You don't own the things that you own. The things that you own you, right? You can be owned by an addiction. You can be owned by alcoholism. You can be owned by drug addiction. You can be owned by, and you can be owned by your phone.
Yeah.
You can be owned by this computer screen. You can be owned by commercialism. You can be owned by consumerism. So it's not just about who, it's about what else owns you and owns your reality. I mean, do you own your house or does your house own you? That sounds a little silly to say out loud, but I think that it's a good question, right? Like,
I'd say that's why they're called possessions, Ryder, right? If you have possessions, you're possessed by them, right? You get possessed by ghosts, you get possessed by entities, you get possessed by ideas, it's to be taken over. So if you have a whole bunch of possessions, you're possessed by them. And I would say if you take it full circle to answer some of the questions, it comes back to responsibility. In that, yes, you're possessed or you're owned by your phone, but you don't have to pick it up, right? You're possessed, you're owned by the alcohol, but you don't have to go to the bar. You're possessed, let's say, by your job or the debts you have, if you like, but your actions therein from the day to day are totally up to you. So what owns you and who owns you, I would say it's a choice, not an easy choice, but perhaps it comes back to responsibility in deciding. It's a good question for you to fill in your own blanks, everyone out there. What owns you and who owns you, and to see if you like that or not. If it fulfills your happiness or not, or fulfills your life and your day to day and where you want to go and what you want to accomplish.
yeah, it's almost like we have this built in hardwired negativity. And we use that hardwired negativity as a self defense mechanism, right? Constantly. Like if you're driving down the road and you see a beautiful rainbow, let's just say, for example, right? You really don't pay attention. You just kind of look up and you say, oh, that's nice. And then you look down and you keep driving your car. Some people even drive it faster. But if you see a car accident, that's a different story, right?
Mm.
You you slow down. You slow down to check it out, right? And to see what's going on. And I believe that that is some sort of built-in survival mechanism that we subconsciously want fear, pain, anger, and negativity. What do you think about that?
What do you mean? Can you describe the question a bit further? Like I agree with you. It does seem that people do get attracted to the horror of life, as you said, a lot quicker. To slow down the accident. If you see something, I remember walking down the streets of Toronto when I visited not so long ago, even with my wife. It was the first time she visited in the winter, and unfortunately or not, we saw a lady on a bike whose life was over in that moment in the morning, right? And it was a horrific scene, which still sticks with me to this day. And I've seen that in Mexico too, taking a walk in the morning, and someone who decided to leave their hotel from a high level floor, higher than was safe, let's say, and they ended up on the ground. And I got to see both of those things, right? Showing me that, how easy it is for life to be over, for life to end, like one minute you're here and the next minute you're not. So perhaps, to answer your question, maybe people are considering that in that moment. Like you see a flower, sometimes you take it for granted, right? You see someone dancing, you see a chocolate. And I would say that's the difference between, being owned and not being owned, is to understand for yourself, why you are attracted to the car accident, right? Why you are attracted to the suicide, which is what I saw, or the bike, the lady that was on her way and left the life probably a lot quicker than she had expected that morning when she was on her way to work. It was rush hour in the morning in Toronto, at the time when a truck took her out, so to speak. So I would say the bottom line is maybe you're trying to get a visceral idea of life being a lot shorter than most of us would like, expect, or even consider in their day to day.
I think a big problem with us is that we don't know who we are, right? And we only identify with the things that are around us. I mean, and that's the majority of the population anywhere and everywhere. We're brought into this world, like you said, that you're given a birth certificate. In the United States, you're given a social security number, and you're given a set of rules, and you're told what to believe, how to act, what to think, how to be. And we collect all this stuff, all this material stuff, and we're told that that is success,
Mm.
that the material stuff is success, and we then identify with those things so deeply, and we constantly revert back to them, no matter what opposing thoughts or ideas are coming at us. And we have people around us constantly reinforcing the exact same illusion because they were taught and shown the exact same things. And I think that this is what I'm speaking about here is like a collective issue. Like we can break out of it on an individual level by figuring things out for ourselves, but as a collective, I think that that is a really big problem.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned social insurance number, right? If you put the letters together, sin, born in sin, so, supposedly put a number on your life instead of there was that old prisoner show, wasn't it, where where everyone had a number. So the collective dream and the individual dream, it's very interesting that you brought up in that. What can you do for your fellow man? What can you help create to get them out of the system? Perhaps someone has to go first. People like you that are leading the way in the information you're sharing. It's one of the things I read. You asked me maybe a bit about how and why I started, what I've been doing. And that old quote came up, all it takes for evil to take over the world is for good men to do nothing. Right. And then, evil seems to grow. So perhaps that is what, inspired me back in the day. I felt like being a good guy. I felt like sharing. I still do. You don't make a fortune doing this. At least I haven't yet. Yes,
It would
as
be
you know.
nice, though. It'd be nice
Yeah,
if we could make a lot of money.
yeah, it would be nice, but most people seem to think you get on, you do this, you do 1,000 videos a year or what have you, and you're making a lot of money, and basically, you're usually struggling just to keep the lights on and the bills paid, and most of us have second and third jobs or something they're doing on the side as well, or someone that's supporting us indirectly, allowing us to do this. And why do we keep doing it? And I would say the answer to your question is good men do want to help the world, right? Good men do want to see their community do well. Strong men are interested in helping their direct and indirect and further outfield doing well. And for me, the idea of ownership makes me want to vomit, to be honest. When I thought that I was owned by a bank, or I was owned even by my parents. I mean, we're definitely born. If you talk about ownership being control, your parents do control you when you're younger. They're bigger than you. They have the food, they have the money, they have the household, they have, if you're living in a cold country, what are you going to do? I was raised in, Toronto, -20 in the winter. You're not going to run away when you're 5, freeze to death, even though, even though you don't, you disagree, which I did all the time with what your parents were suggesting you do, shoving me to religious school being one of them, used to make me sick every Saturday, Sunday, or whenever the days were that they made me go. So, it was a question that sat with me and still does my whole and entire life. I detest someone telling me what to do. And basically, that's the definition of ownership, right? Control, the ability to tell something. If you have a shirt, you can decide what to do with it. As you say, if you own land, supposedly, you can decide what to do with it. And, if you have money, you can supposedly decide where to sell it. But again, we talked about digital money in our last chat as well. Even that is suspect right now because, you're online. Anybody can turn your credit card or your debit card I've had problems with PayPal over the years when they don't like the different countries I sign in from. Oh, sorry, we don't like the fact that you're, in this country and your PayPal account's over there, so you can't access your money today. And I've even known people that do what we do that have lost thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in PayPal simply because PayPal didn't like the information they were sharing. So no, I don't even think you do own your currency in that system. Getting back to what controls you and who owns you.
Matthew, thank you very much for gifting a someone in the chat a Ryder Ranger membership. Thank you so much, Matthew. You're always coming through on the come through, Matthew. Really appreciate you, brother, and your support of the show. Yeah, it's like we've created a life reacting to the distractions of the world instead of living an internal life, right? Instead of going out and creating, a majority of people are reacting to life. And we've seen a lot of this play out in the past decade with the emergence of the internet and reaction videos and these short clips and stuff, and you're watching someone else watching something. And but what was it before that, right? What was
Oh,
happening before that? The whole game of follow the leader, it's just been turned into the next level through the internet. And I think that this reality has been built a lot on the back of fear, on the rudimentary level. Everything is fear, fear of missing out on an individual level, right? Fear of missing out, fear of not being enough, fear of saying the wrong thing, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of not having enough, having a social status, fear of not having money, the fear of loss. And I think most importantly, a lot of this revolves around the fear of death. And I believe that that is one of the biggest ones that people fear the most. And within all of that fear on an individual level, we've essentially just forgotten how to live.
yeah, maybe people, if they want to live in fear, and I agree with you, it's directed a lot of my life. They should fear not living their life, right? They should fear not doing what they came here for. They should fear not create. I mean, for me, that's what changed me. I'm going, if you're here for 150 years, it's not a long time. So what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What would you like to accomplish, and how would you like to share during this life? I mean, if I may be so bold as to ask you a question on this, Ryder, like, why did you start your channel and start sharing the way you've been sharing? What motivated you to do what you're doing?
Just because I wanted to get down to the root and the bottom of everything that's going on. And I just decided to do it. And I wasn't good at it in the beginning. And then I kept doing it. And then we got to where we are now. And I don't think that there is a lot of people out there. There is a few that are going as deep into the research aspects that I've done, especially surrounding UFOs and the extraterrestrial narrative, uh, and I love to do it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy chatting with all the people in the chat. I enjoy seeing their comments. I love seeing people that email me, and I've had several people email me. I mean, I don't talk about it because I don't like to make people think that I have a huge ego or anything, but people have emailed me and said that I've changed their lives.
It's
The
a great
information that I bring forward has changed their lives and it has helped them get through a lot of stuff. And I get that and I understand that. I mean, podcasts that I've listened to in the past before I even started my show really helped me get through a lot of stuff that I was going through at that time. So it's a honor and a privilege to be able to pass that along and give that to other people that could possibly currently be in my shoes that I was in 10 years ago.
Yeah, I hear you. I have a similar feeling. I wish sometimes, I could have talked to myself when I was 14, 15, 16. Said, relax, don't worry about it, don't stress so much. You'll figure it out. Sometimes I heard that voice echo from when I was a teenager going, one day you'll understand, one day you'll know, one day you'll figure out what's going on and what's moving. And it seems I've come full circle. I mean, I like No Bull Truth over there. One of the viewers today has a very nice comment. When you have a purpose, even death respects that. And I would agree. I don't think death is a bad thing. As you said that people fear it. I think death is your friend. Death is reminding you that you don't got time to be stupid. You don't got time to indulge. You don't got time to be angry. I mean, I don't know about you. I've been close to death a few times in my life, and I'm not thinking about a faster car or my bank account or if I'm going to get the latest shoes. Literally, it's happened to me 4 or 5 times that I can think about, and I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was angry to this person. I didn't tell my parents I loved them enough. I didn't tell my girlfriend or my friends that I appreciated them. It's like when death is sitting beside you, your perspective of what's important, your priorities shift drastically. And if anybody's wondering what to do with their life, maybe take a moment to meditate. We've talked about that, and sit with your death for 10 minutes. Ask your death why you're here, and I have a strong feeling you'll get a good answer for yourself, even if you don't like it at first.
Sandra says, my air conditioner owns me the last 3 days. 44 degrees Celsius. Oh man, get that air conditioner blowing, Sandra. Yeah, no bullshit. Thank you. Appreciate your comment, and thank you for being a channel member. Really appreciate that. Yeah, the whole thing of death and this, because I am under the personal belief that thoughts have mental energy, right, and we're in an electromagnetic reality. But here's where it gets interesting and goes back to Jerry Marzinski's work. That you've had him on several times. I've had him on several times. What if the thoughts that we're thinking aren't coming from us, right? And they're coming from a mass consciousness? What if we're not thinking, we're actually listening? And when the mass consciousness is filled with fear and doubt and death, our first thoughts become fear, doubt, and death. And we get stuck in these mass consciousness thought forms. And then those mass consciousness thought forms inadvertently become our reality.
Well, it's like swimming in water, I would say. So I agree with you with that. If you anybody's been in a pool, I don't know, where somebody peed when you were a little boy. I still remember going to some public pools and things like that, or they put chlorine in it, and it's not just one person that's affected; it's everybody, right? If a huge person jumps into a pool and you're beside them, you're going to feel the vibration. So I would say it is exactly the same in an energetic level. We're all swimming in energy and radio waves and things like that. Maybe that's why the cell phones were invented, or those 5G towers are everywhere, because there's obviously a lot more of them than are required. I don't believe in satellites either. I think that's a whole bunch of BS. It seems to me that they're putting up these 5G towers, and that's pretty much probably what they use for their communication. So what's going on in a level that we can't understand and can't see, and can only feel in our guts, in our vibrational places. And I would agree with you. I think TV supposedly, I don't know if we chatted about this last time, was invented to talk to spirits. So, what's in your TV, what's in the computer here is not what's in there. It's just being projected into it. And I'm reacting to your face and the comments and things like that. But, you're not with me and they're not with me. So I would say your thoughts are pretty much the same. What's projecting them could be a topic for another day, but pretty much you're probably just getting some ideas projected into you. But, what you do with them, how you act with them, that's where you get to separate being an adult from being a child, right? You get to choose. And it also shows you what owns you, right? So if you get up in the morning, as an example, and you don't want to go to work, but you say, well, I've got a mortgage and I've got a car payment and I've got my insurance bill coming up, and those sorts of things are due, and you go anyways, well, you can see right there what owns you. It's owning your day, it's owning your time, it's owning your very life, it's owning your existence. If you need to buy a brand, we talked about that earlier, so you want to buy some Gucci shoes and they're $10 million, and and you only have $4 million, so you got to work that the next year to make the other 6 million. What owns you, right? Those Gucci shoes own you. You're branded by them because you're off working to earn those shoes. And then you can ask yourself, if you want to take it further back, why do you want the Gucci shoes? So maybe status owns you, or wanting to impress your friends own you, or for some reason having to live a certain sort of lifestyle owns you. And I've talked to a lot of rich people. I've talked to a lot of poor people. I've talked to sick people. I've worked on purpose with people that are dying. A long time ago, I worked with old people, taking them to the hospital, things like that. I volunteered, just to get a feeling of what's really going on when you get close to the end of your days, right? And again, death is the great equalizer, I would say, and that shows you if you enjoy, your purchases, your purposes, and the brandings you decide to carry, or you decide that you want to do something new. As you said, and the thought process, like you said, is a good place to start.
What were those people like that you were working with that were dying? What did they have to say? Were they full of regret? Did they regret things throughout their life? Because I think that is a very important thing to let go of as well, is regret. And I think that that's what holds a lot of people down and back, especially the older that you get. I mean, I've learned that you can't regret anything. Like you have to let go of that regret. That regret is literally harming your body, it's hurting you in more ways than one. It's hurting your physical body, it's hurting your mental state, it's hurting everything about you. So, did a lot of these people hold on to a lot of their regret?
Yeah, indeed they did. I mean, not all of them. You know, I remember working with one fellow who was bedridden. He was just angry all the time, and he was never happy. Right? I guess he was paralyzed for some reason or other. I went with a lady who had nasal cancer, and that was an interesting experience. Like staying in the room with her, helping her go from Victoria to Vancouver in Canada, and you know, because she stayed in a charity house, you know, somewhere downtown in Vancouver. And I remember talking with her. She was also very angry, which is very interesting, you know. And then on the other hand, there was a fellow that used to give talks on being happy and beautiful and having a great life. And when they literally wheeled him on stage, he was born without any legs or arms. People were shocked that he was actually delighted to be here and be alive, and he didn't have any regrets. So yeah, I would say regret not living. That's what I found from a lot of the people. It's you never regret what you've done. It's almost always you regret what you haven't done. Even if it was a horrible experience, you've learned not
Mm.
to do it again, right? You know, sure, I regret some of the relationships I've had, or some of the jobs I've taken, or some of the food I used to eat. You know, but on
Yeah.
the other hand, you know, now when I see bad food, my stomach tells me no. My body says no. Like, I'm not interested in being an asshole anymore. I regret the times that I wasn't nice to the people in my life, let's say, or I regret doing stupid jobs. I regret staying in Canada in the winter so long. You know, now that I'm living in a more temperate area, I go, I don't know what took me so long, you know, not really liking the cold. But, you know, on the other hand, now I don't delay anymore. If I have a feeling or an idea of what I want to do. So if you take if you encompass, let's say, the totality of your existence, uh, I would say regrets probably handcuff you or manacle you when you think too much. But if you take them for what they are, a simple lesson in life, you know, you don't regret them anymore. You just understand it's too late. You've already done or haven't done what's happened. So, you know, to move forward from there would be, if you know, taking it back to the topic of this conversation, would be how you gain ownership of yourself.
That's an interesting concept that most people regret what they didn't do. You know, and is that only because they are looking back on it in the rearview mirror that they would have? I mean, were they thinking that in the moment that it was happening, that they instantly regret it, or is it only in the future when they're looking back on it and they're thinking, "Oh man, I should not have done that," or "I should have done this"? Were they thinking that thing in the moment or not? And I think that that's a really interesting concept because if you were thinking about it in that moment, then it's different than thinking about it later on down the road in the future while looking back on it in retrospect.
Well, there was a lady who was 90 something. Someone did an interview with her and, you know, asked her what she regretted in life. And it was interesting is she said she didn't regret anything she did. She regretted not dancing more, not having more moments, not enjoying the flowers more, not singing more, you know, not living your life. I think a life is made of moments. You know, if you look at the stars one night, or you smell a flower, or you spend time with, you know, your relationship, you know, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. And it's in those moments, you know, that when you're dying, I think, again, if you talk to your death, you regret not experiencing why you're really here, right? Like, nobody's here to sit in an office and earn $10 an hour, right? Nobody's here, you know, to be a security guard for a large corporation and watch the front door at night. These are just some of the jobs I've done. You know, nobody's here maybe to sell coffees, you know, to ungrateful people for, you know, $10 a latte if you happen to work at Starbucks. You know, you're here to experience the time and the moments in between that. You know, that this world has convinced us we need to earn a living, right? We need to earn our way through, which is really weird since, you know, you don't have to earn anything. Your life is a gift. You can't buy life. You can't extend it with any, you know, any amount of money, as that song goes. You know, not another moment. You know, does the money buy? I think it was Styx song or something like that. You know, a long time ago, an old song. So, you know, again, you do regret what you haven't done as far as what you wish to experience in relation to the beauty, wonder, and magic of life. I hate to use the word magic because it has bad connotations, but it's more like, you know, when I get up why I do this job, since again we asked, is because I love what I do. I love sharing it. I love being able to express what I'm doing. I love being able to show other men. Perhaps I don't know why, but I talk mostly to men on my channels. I don't know about you, but they seem to be the ones
Same.
that really, yeah, they seem to be the ones that want to get out there and change things. And I think it's a man's job, right, to want to get out there and shake things up. To go, wait a minute, you don't have to be a slave. Wait a minute, you don't have to eat bad food. Wait a minute, you don't have to be shackled to bad ideas, beliefs. You can, if you so decide, claim ownership of your day to day. I mean, what is time, right? Do you own your own time? Another part of what owns you. A lot of people are owned. Time is money, which is of course the ultimate in crappy sayings.
Yeah, and that gets into what I was mentioning on your show the other day too. Is like time is the monetary system. Time is
Yeah,
money, and
yeah,
it's not a physical thing. Like the energy and the attention and the time that you put in something is the currency. Uh, Max Egan says something that I really resonate with. He says something like, don't have a stake in the outcome. When you don't have a stake in the outcome, you don't have expectations. And when you don't have expectations, you're free. And what I think we've done is lock ourselves into a mental prison, and we've essentially thrown away the key. We're the ones to blame.
100%.
It's not an outside force. There's no outside manipulations. And ultimately, like what you're saying, is we have the choice. We have the choice to do something. We have the choice to act. We have the choice to do something that we may or may not regret in the future. Wu Guy Fu just brought up something really interesting. He said, I still have reoccurring dreams about a girl in high school that I had a crush on 30 something years ago. I guess I regret not asking her out. And that's a really good example.
Yeah, I mean, she might have said no. She might have laughed at you, and then you wouldn't regret it 30 years later. You'd have your experience, and you'd move on. It's interesting you mentioned Max. I did an interview with him maybe 2 weeks ago. It's on my channel called Dharma on Purpose, and he mentioned that very thing. Not having a stake in the outcome. So if anybody wants to see Max and I chat, and go a little deeper into the topic that Ryder just mentioned, feel free to check out the new now. It is on there, and I've had several with him over the years, and yeah, I feel that there are nothing but choices, right? Even not making a choice is a choice. You have no choice but to make choices once you're born. You could lock yourself up in the room. You can throw away the key. You can have someone slip, porridge under your door. You can be a house in person, which they have a lot of those, in Asia, I've heard, because they're afraid of life. It's called what? Agoraphobic. You're afraid of, meeting and seeing people, but that's a choice. Once you start breathing, you have no choice but to make choices. Even when you're 4 or 5, and my parents would tell me to do something or not, I remember saying I don't want to, and I would still make the choice. I can consciously recall, saying, well, I want my allowance, or I want to get my chocolate bar, or I want my mommy to think I'm a good boy, so I'll get a better grade in school or whatever. But there was always a choice. It's not easy when you're 4 or 5 or 12 and someone has control over your life in one way or another. But I feel the world will always support you in your choices. I think if you took off when you were 12 and joined the circus, or you decided not to do what you decided not to do, or you decided to do what you decided to do, I think one way or the other, that's what's not passed along or shared enough with people. The world, as you mentioned, is your true supporter and owner, if you like. You're born onto this planet, you're born onto the earth. You can't purchase any of that stuff. And I strongly feel it supports you in whatever choice you make. So if you choose to be a slave, it'll support you in that. If you choose to be free, it'll support you in that. You may not always like how it supports you. Sometimes, tough love, as they say, is a kick in the ass, or a bloody nose if you talk back to the wrong person. But in the end, one way or the other, I think you can't fail but to succeed as long as you actually do something.
Yeah, I agree with that. But some people will say, "Oh, well, what about the people that do wrong and the people that make uh, bad choices? Is is the universe going to support them making a bad choice? And then that gets into, well, what is a bad choice?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as a bad choice? And I don't think so. I think that we live in a duality, polarity reality where bad things happen, good things happen, and sometimes it's just in the middle, and that's just the way things are set up here. But what would be your response to that? To
Well,
someone saying, "Oh, yeah, go ahead."
Well, I used to get pissed off at the people say, well, what about the children starving here? What about everyone being beaten there? What about the sex slaves here? What about the people dying here? And I'm not saying any of that is not happening and not true, because it probably is. I haven't seen a lot of it personally. I hear about news and I see things being passed along. And, my wife would say that often enough when I say, well, I heard this bad thing happen here. She'd go, how do you know? And I go, you're right. A news or a news flash or an article in a newspaper. I did another newspaper a long time ago, getting back to this, a community paper I worked at for 3 years. And I remember going to events, and my job was to make them look busy when they weren't busy, or to make them look interesting when they weren't interesting, right? So that, 6 people would be in an event that's supposed to be full, and you just take close-up pictures and put 2 of those, in the paper, and suddenly the event looks busy. And people would say, "Oh, that looked like a great, well-attended, happy event. Please smile for the camera," And then you were at the event, and it was boring, and nobody was there, and nobody really wanted to be there, but you made it look good. So, to take that back, I would say the people that say things like that, you have to take everything on a moment by moment, case by case. You were there and you were involved basis. Russ, you really can't answer that question. What about the children starving in Africa? What are you going to do about it? That's what I would say. Do you want to do something about it? Maybe you should go to Africa and check it out, as an example. I'm not trying to be heartless here. I'm just saying a lot of people will use these as excuses to not act, right? Or to have bad behavior, or to not listen to good advice that you might say, or you might share with them. So my way of looking at that is, I would agree, not the demonic way or the devil way of looking at it, the satanic way of there's no good and there's no evil, because I do feel, there's loving actions and in loving actions or non-loving actions according to you, but what's good or bad really, depends on the moment and what you're doing. I've had some horrible experiences that have made my life better, and so, like you say, at the time they were bad, today they're great. So were they bad?
Yeah.
It depends who you ask and when you ask them, and I don't think it makes a difference other than to the people who are directly involved. That would be my way to answer that.
Yes. Well said. And it's based off of your experience, right? Like, and it's just like the different interpretations. Like, you can see something in with a group of people. Let's just say it's kind of maybe a little off topic, but let's just say someone you're all in a haunted location. You're all at a haunted place, paranormal activity there. You're with a bunch of friends. You're with other people. You all see the same thing. Each one of those people are going to have a different interpretation of what they saw. It's not all going to be the same. They might get some things similar, but according to their perception and their reality, they're going to see something different than what you've seen. And that's not saying that there isn't some cases where something like that happens and everyone describes and sees the exact same thing, but that's just an example of how people can translate things differently. And something that might be wrong to me might not be wrong to you, which then gets into this karma. And what is karma? Is karma a self perpetuating system? Do you have to feel bad for your actions for karma to work? Because I've seen a lot of people do some really bad stuff and you don't see them get any karmic repercussions. Now, people will say, oh, well, they'll get their karma in the next life. Will they? I don't know. Does it depend on if they feel bad for their actions? If they have remorse for what they've done, does that put them in this karmic repercussion thing? If that's the case, then that means that it's a self-perpetuating system. And whatever it is that you do, as long as you don't feel bad about it and you don't feel guilt and you don't feel remorse for it, which some people that would be describing like a psychopath, right? But if you don't feel guilt and remorse and think that your actions are actually wrong and you do them anyway, will you be free of a of course this is speculation and theory and hyperbole here, but I just think that it's interesting because it seems like a lot of people do a lot of bad acts. They act in bad ways. They do harmful things to people, and they get absolutely zero consequences. And the people that are doing good things and are helping people don't get recognition. They normally get the short end of the stick on a lot of things. So I know that I said a lot there, but want to get your comments.
Well, how do we know? Like, we're judging everything from a distance, right? Like, what is a good action? What is a repercussion? Like, so you do a good action, you're supposed to get a lot of money. You're supposed to get people telling you you're fantastic. You're supposed to get the Mercedes because you're doing something good. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're supposed to have a life of being humble and not having a lot, and maybe that's going to help your heart into the next life if you believe. Maybe the people that are supposedly, I've had this karma talk with a few people that have gotten very angry with me, and I'm going, I don't really think there is a karma other than you come here. Maybe you come with a purpose. I think it's something we choose even before we get here, whatever that is. Maybe your purpose is just to be the best you can be, which to me would be a great purpose. There's only one Ryder, there's only one Lorenzo. Everyone is unique in their way. So maybe living up to what you feel like you should be doing in your life is the best of all of options without caring about anyone else. I mean, if someone does horrible things, so to speak, it will come back to them in that they're creating a horrible life for themselves. We don't know. So let's say, for example, someone is tricky and they make $1 billion. I've met a lot of rich people when they're older. They're miserable. To be honest. I've met tons of people, like even recently, in my travels, that have everything, so to speak. They don't look happy. They look deluded. They may have the land and the money and the cars and the food and go out and spend like they don't care. And I've seen that a lot, but are they genuinely purposefully fulfilled? My gut reaction is telling me they're not. They're distracting themselves to their dead and they're just haunted, but maybe they're living in a bigger haunted cage with gold walls, as they say, gilded cage, and you and I, or a lot of people, are living maybe in a trailer with shitty dirty walls. But a haunted is haunted is haunted. And so to take what you've said, with the karma, I think it's a lot of what people have forgotten. You're still sitting and judging, and that's what I think keeps people in jail. Like, you're judging this should happen to him, or you're judging she should get that, or he should be like, I'm such a good person, why do bad things happen to me?
Mm.
I've talked to a lot of people like that. Maybe on the outside they're being good, but maybe they're being bad to themselves. A lot of ladies are like that. I've noticed when I talk to them, they're going like, I'm always giving, I'm always caring. I've heard a million mothers say, I've given everything to my children. Why aren't they loving me more or giving me more back? As an example, it could simply be because they're not loving themselves. What do we know what's going on inside someone? Maybe you have to give it to yourself before you get it. Maybe you have to love yourself and not just give lip service, saying, "Oh, I love myself. Of course, I respect myself. Of course, I deserve the best." But maybe subconsciously you did some horrible things when you were 8. You haven't forgiven yourself for. There is something called a
Mm.
recapitulation. I don't know if anybody's read any Castaneda Toltec books. I don't need to get into that, but to re-look at your life from an honest perspective, and to see how you've been good to yourself and how you've been bad to yourself, and see how you've been good to others and how you've been bad to others. And I don't mean by anybody's rules onto what's good or bad, by your own judgments on yourself. That's it. Begins and ends with you. And if you're honest, you'll find places where you've been great, places where you've been horrible, places where you've missed out, and places where you've been fantastic. And if you put all that together, I would say that's your karma. An honest understanding of your life and how it's worked and why it hasn't worked, all in relation to how you would like it to work, not anybody else to tell you.
And that goes back to the expectation of
Mm,
something, right? Like,
yeah.
if I'm only being good and I'm only doing something for someone, I'm only being nice to people because I want something in return, that is not the way to do it.
Mm,
Being good and doing something out of the kindness of your heart requires you to be selfless in that action and not expect something in return. I think that that is a part of the inner healing. And we see this all the time with people like big donators, right? Like celebrities and people will donate to a charity and they want to get recognition for donating to that charity, right? They'll bring out a giant, humongous check for these people. They'll have the news agencies there. They'll have cameras all around them. It's exactly like people that on social media that will only give to the homeless when they have a camera shoved in their face. You know, they don't want to do anything without getting recognition for it.
Yeah. So is that real? I worked 3 years for a community paper in Toronto, and I remember they told me to go to charity events. McDonald's giving that $10,000 check to the Ronald McDonald Foundation or whatever, and you're going, well, is that really doing something nice? They're selling food which is killing people, in my opinion, or giving them cancer or making them unhealthy. Anybody only has to watch that documentary, I guess, Super Size Me. I remember watching that. That had a huge impact with the guy at McDonald's 3 times a day for a month and literally ruined his health, according to him. To realize that McDonald's isn't doing that, so they are getting their karma, so to speak, right? Even like people are equating too much with this currency, this current system, this money system as being well rewarded without doing studies as to where money comes from. Who's making it? Why are they making it? Why was it invented? I mean, they used to trade rice in Asia up until about 100 years ago. That was their wealth, right? Trading rice for wealth because it was food and it was more direct. It wasn't transferred into gold, which, as Nixon took you guys off the gold standard, and then it happened in Japan and other countries as well. Till what is money now? Just a promise to pay, right? From a promise to pay from someone somewhere in a basement, probably printing, pieces of paper as much as they feel like it. And so why would that's obviously not a loving system, be equitable to your karma? Right? Maybe it's the opposite, right? Maybe you get a lot of money. I don't know about you, Ryder, but I've seen people that tend to make a lot of money in this world tend to make it by being not so nice, or at least being tricky. Like people that make alcohol, they make a lot of money, right? People that make the jabs, they make a lot of money, right? People that work for government, they make a lot of money. People that do things that are related somehow to this control system make a lot of money. Others like you and I, and people that are trying to do good, you usually don't make so much money.
And that's not to say that some people can't have wealth without scamming people or frauding people. I'm sure that there's both people on both ends of the spectrum, but I understand and get what you're saying. A lot of the wealth is accumulated through deception and doing things that would not be considered moral and really unjustifiable things. I was just watching a documentary series on Hulu last night, and it was all about fake money, about creating like printing money and what is it called?
Counterfeiting.
Counterfeiting, yes, counterfeiting money, and it's wild how much counterfeit money is really going around, and the counterfeit money looks almost identical to the real money. And then I'm thinking, well, are they really doing something wrong? Isn't what they're doing exactly what the government is doing? Aren't they just printing money backed by nothing? It's just, I was like, why? This is wild. And how much, and some of them just do it from a regular printer. They make the whole, how you hold up a bill and it has that watermark on it. They've created the watermark. They make it look almost dang near identical, and they had some wild justifications for doing it. They're like, well, what does it matter? You guys are doing the exact same thing that we're doing. Your money isn't backed by anything, so why can't we print our own money?
Look, any law that has to be enforced, with the threat of being put in a prison cell or a box or a gun, everyone who considers it probably realizes most of the rules and laws they don't like. I mean, 50%, even if you're a drinker, 50% is tax, or for driving, 70% is tax. And tax, what does tax mean? Tax means to hurt, to burden someone, to tax someone, to cause them pain. So I would agree. It's like nobody gives anybody the right to own you or to have control over you, and the fact that it has to be done with threats and violence, even if it's a threat to turn off your credit card or your debit card, or a threat to put you in jail, or a threat for the cops to come and to confiscate your land. That's not love. That's not life. And so I would agree with them. I remember watching some of those same documentaries on the mafia, going, whatever, they're just another mafia. Of course, they're the biggest mafia in the world. All the governments, mind control, governmental, mind. Literally, the word means to control your mind, right? Governmental, control mind, control your mental process. So it's all in the words. And it gets back to the morality. And someone had mentioned a while ago the NGOs that just do bad things. I used to visit them too when I did that newspaper, and everyone in those NGOs creeped me the f out. And I used to say, why are these people that are supposedly doing charity and helping and are working in these potential ways of supposedly doing good things in the world? Why do I feel creeped out every time I visit their offices, every time I have a chat with them, every time I want to do some work with them? It was just weird to me. It would feel like swimming in poo, right? It's kind of the best way I could put it. Now I know, right? I think at the heart of it, they weren't trying to help. They weren't trying to authentically, free their fellow man or woman. They were generally just doing things for the money and covering it up with, a mask of generosity, compassion. Wasn't real. I think real hearts can tell real hearts, and so I would agree. I'm all for I'm all for counterfeiters. Whatever, go at it. Who cares? It's all the same in my opinion.
I mean, it's the pinnacle of ideological subversion, right?
Yeah.
The masters of psychological warfare, nonlinear warfare, selling us our own demise under the guise of something virtuous. And that's how it works, folks. Before I let you go this evening, I want to give people a little preview on what we're going to be talking about next, because I do want to bring you on sometime in the future with your wife about Japan, because I think Japan is very fascinating, and Japan has this lore that spans back thousands of years that's just unbelievable. And unfortunately, in the United States, we don't really get to hear about what other countries are like and what's going on in other countries and how their society and how their people operate on a day-to-day basis. It's normally just revolves around fear. If there's a big disaster or something has happened or someone is assassinated or someone is killed, then we get to hear about it. Then it's newsworthy, but we don't really
Yeah.
get any information about how the government of other countries are ran and how they're constructed, and what day-to-day life is like, and what's the difference between the East and the West. So uh, give the audience a little bit of a preview of what
Okay.
the difference between Japan and a place like the United States, and what that culture is like.
Well, I've been very lucky over the last 13 years to go back and forth between North America, Canada, and here, and also to learn the Japanese language. I'm getting at it. It's a difficult language, three alphabets, to pick up and to read and things like that, and how they think. And people in the West and people in the East do not think alike. It's become more homogenized over the last decade that I've lived here for sure. But they used to ask as a way to describe it, older Japanese people in the 30s and 40s, where they thought, and they didn't point to their head. They pointed to the hara, their middle, their center. They thought with their guts, with their middle brain. So I would say that would be the difference, in that Asians and white people are not the same. They don't think the same. They don't have the same priorities. They don't have the same day-to-day ideas of what success means and what it doesn't. And they certainly do not, I can recall, thinking like, why don't they think like me? I would get angry that the people are different, and then you start to realize family is more important here, or used to be. Getting along with community is more important here. Not rocking the boat is more important. I don't think it's a good thing, personally. On the other hand, it depends who's leading, right? If you're leading your society and your community to a good place, if there's some good energy leading you somewhere great, it's fantastic. If there's some bad energy leading you somewhere, that also happens faster, right? As whereas when you go to North America, people are more individualistic. It's really weird, Ryder, that I've noticed, over the last 4 years. Here's where I'll leave this, for the chat. So with the viral shenanigans, people in North America to me got more angry, a lot more angry. on a general level, and people in Asia got more sad, which is really
Hmm.
interesting.
That is really interesting. What is the view of the Japanese culture? And then I'm going to let you go. We're going to wrap up. What is the view within the Japanese culture? How do they view the United States and America? Tell us bluntly. Tell us exactly how it is, because I find this very interesting.
I think each culture finds the other one stupid, and dumb and uninformed. Basically, when my wife was in North America, and she would talk with the other Japanese people that were there. They went to learn English. It's where I met her. In Canada, her friends would say that Canadians are stupid. And that the way they viewed things, because they weren't getting along, they weren't cooperating, they weren't seeing the bigger picture. Whereas North Americans would look back and Japanese people and say the same thing. They're not being aggressive enough. They're not being responsible enough for their own life. They're not, listening less, because they do listen a lot faster here. There's no doubt. 50% of the people are still wearing masks when you go out on a day-to-day basis. To me, that's crazy. But then I've heard they're doing it. I thought they're just being afraid, but I've since learned most of them, or a lot of them are, but a lot of them are doing it to be respectful for the other people, not to pass. So that's the difference, really. It's like, I think North Americans will wear a mask to protect themselves. There you go. And Asian people a lot of the time will wear a mask to protect others.
That's really interesting. Candace said, didn't Japan not let anyone out in and out of the country for 400 years?
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, for 3 years, there weren't allowed. There wasn't any
Not
traveling here.
not not revolving
Yeah,
the
I've heard
boogity
that.
boo. Not
I've heard
revolving the
that
boogity
too.
boo.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too. I don't know. I wasn't here. I've heard that, but I can only say in the Boogity Boo, I was here for 3 years, and there wasn't any North Americans here. It was beautiful. To be honest, there was a shrine I used to go to with my wife, our Abundant Shrine, and it's always full of tourists and people taking pictures, and fat people blocking the sacred parts of it, so to speak, and skinny people too. But I went once when they weren't there, and it was amazing. She said it was like the old days when it was just people that were respectful of the times, doing the spiritual practices. So yeah, it is
Is there a lot of
something.
is there any obese people in Japan?
It's gotten crazy lately. Crazy, crazy obese people here now. Mostly women, I have to say, strangely enough. But a day doesn't go by when I don't. It used to be none. 13 years ago, if you saw an obese person, it was a shock, and you did a triple check. Now, short people shouldn't get fat. That's my opinion, because there's a lot of people here that are wider than they are taller, and that's just not a good look. So yeah, now there is with the North American diet and the carbohydrates and things, tons of obese people here now.
So fast food has infiltrated into Japan. Do you guys have
Oh yeah,
McDonald's there?
all over the place. All over the place. I think it's the media as well. You see more and more they're trying to normalize large people, let's say, and saying it's healthy, but well, I've been fat when I was younger, and it wasn't healthy. I can say you really don't feel good.
That's interesting. That when do you think that change took place? Was it in recent years, or how long have you been seeing abnormally larger obese people? Chris just said sumo Japanese,
I love sumo,
sumo
but
wrestlers.
but sumos aren't obese. I mean, they're big. It's very different. I used to go to bashos and watch them practice, and these guys are athletes. They've got like more muscle underneath their fat. Like I've seen just fat people sumo, and they fall down and get roly poly, and they don't do anything. But when you actually watch what the sumos have done to practice their whole lives to become sumo, they're huge, no doubt about it. And some of them are fat. Like I've stood beside. Maybe I'll share a picture when we do that chat, because I went to a few jingyos, which is local sumo practices. And you stand beside them, and you feel tiny, no doubt about it. They're huge, huge men, but they're also kind and gracious, and usually very polite. So it's a wonderful, beautiful, and they smell good. People don't understand that the pomade they use in their hair is one of the it's all natural herbs and flowers and perfumes. And when you stand near a sumo, you can't believe how good they smell. It's just an unbelievable experience that you have to be in Japan to experience. But yeah, I think the boogity boo over the last little while, people put their masks on, people are hiding, people are staying home more. You can order in food. So definitely over the last 4 years, you've seen obesity grow by 100 times. So I would say that has to do a lot with that.
Babe says I'll take sashimi over a Big Mac any day. Sushi's bomb there, huh?
Yeah, well, I had sashimi yesterday. That's right, and it's cheap.
Hoo,
Twice,
hoo,
you can get
hoo.
sashimi. You can get sashimi here for two people, $5, right? No doubt, and yeah, more than enough. You can get hotate, which is scallops here. $10, two people can eat. I know in Canada you get two scallops and it's $12, right? So for some reason, if you want good fresh seafood, this is the place to be, no doubt, no doubt. And,
Mm,
and
I
I've
would,
lost weight living here. I have to say, over the last 4 years, I've been here straight since the boogity boo. So I don't have any bread and I don't drink and I don't eat a lot of sugar. So I lost 10 kilos just by eating the a traditional Japanese diet. So it's definitely healthier in that way.
wow, I would be in heaven being in Japan
Come
just for the cuisine. Just for the
come visit.
cuisine, dude.
Come visit, Ryder.
I
It's half the
freaking
reason I'm here. I
I
have to say the food here is amazing.
freaking
It's
love sushi, dude. Throw me some seaweed salad on that bad boy. Done.
come over. Come over.
Poke
My wife's
bowls.
a
Do
great
you
cook.
guys do poke bowls there, or is that
That's
just
Hawaiian.
something that's Hawaiian?
That's
Hmm.
that's Hawaiian. They call them sukedon here, which is kind of the similar raw fish over rice, just a different name.
Yeah, I'm always curious about that. If things are called different things, or if like it's just been Americanized and it's really not that in a different country. So the essential thing of a poke bowl is still in Japan. It's just not called poke bowl, right?
No, it's called Dambulia. It's just seafood over rice. That just says different names. Poke is Hawaiian. That's where it came
Ah,
from originally. But it was Japanese people living in Hawaii which came up with poke bowls. So they just kind of Americanized in a way, I guess. Kind of cross culturally made something delicious.
why do they act like it's from Japan, dude? What is going on?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. Like people in North America still think there's samurais and ninjas, running around Japan. It's the way it goes. And people in Japan think people in Canada live in igloos. Like you said, it goes back to what you mentioned, that there's not a lot of cross-cultural information of the good kind. They share scary things from one country or scary things from another country. As you said, when there's a disaster, you hear about it, but you never hear about the good things, from one country, or even the honest challenges that Japanese people have, or the honest challenges, let's say, that North Americans have. And one comment I want to go before we get off, all nuke seafood from Fukushima. It's interesting, there's another theory going along, which I tend to believe, that I'm not even sure there was any nukes that ever went off anywhere. Supposedly the oceans were going to die and people here were going to die in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. There's nothing. There's just nothing going on. Nobody's got that. No one's cancer. Nobody's dying. The oceans are fine. There's seafood everywhere. I eat it from all over the place. I'm doing groovy. So I think it's a lot of the propaganda built to frighten us, as you said, to put us back in those chains of being afraid, which is maybe, to take this talk full circle, maybe what owns people. And I like what you said. Maybe it's their fears. I would say that's a good way to tie this conversation up. I think it's the fears that own people.
Well, I definitely believe something dropped there in Fukushima. Now, whether that was what they say that it was, who really knows? But it definitely is really interesting. And have you been there? Have you been to Fukushima?
No, I haven't. I see food that comes through here all the time. And I remember watching a video a long time ago about one of the scientists that invented radiation, and he was basically drinking the water and swimming in it. And he was saying it's all BS. It's just a way to control people and make them feel bad.
But
But it's
didn't he
actually,
die soon after that? I'm pretty sure he died a
uh,
couple of
uh,
years after that.
maybe. Again, I can't get into any of the theories. I wasn't there. I don't know for sure. I
Uh,
do know a lot of people, and from those parts of the world, if it was as bad as they say, these places would still be inhospitable, and they're not.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to have you back on in the future with your wife, and we're going to get in all of the Japan stuff because I think it's really important for people. And I have a friend that's actually wanting to move to Japan here. He's actually going to visit during the
Oh,
summertime.
nice.
So he's thinking about actually moving there permanently. So I'm definitely going to bring you back on in the future. Let people know where they can find you, brother.
Yeah, newagora.ca. Check us out every day. The New Now YouTube channel, but go to newagora.ca. I update it every day. There's at least 3 or 4 new articles. Ryder's videos are up there. My videos were up there. This one's already up there as well, as a link towards it. And you'll be able to see all the wonderful things we share and care and get out. And we're delighted to have you there.
Yes, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel and the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. Thank you all, everyone that was in the chat. Chris, JJ Recon, Babe, Noble Truth, Sam, Grace, Wugai Fu, Tori, and anyone else that I did not mention, but I brought some of your comments up during the show. Tomorrow will be a brand new episode of the Ryder Rangers member channel. Please sign up to be a Ryder Ranger member and you'll be able to view that video. Check the community tab page on the channel to get that episode, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.